Hi everyone, thanks for being here. This is going to be a very fast-paced talk because I have like 50 slides and only 30 minutes. But feel free to stop me if something needs to be explained more or in more detail. My talk is called From Prompt to Pull Request. I'm actually going to talk about using AI in client projects delivery. I'm not going to talk about using AI in Drupal core or contrib delivery, but things could map that way as well. So this is like my journey last year and more intense the last 6 months on finding the way around AI and coding agents and the best way to actually implement it to make it as autonomous as possible. Where are we now? 2021, when Copilot appeared and was just autocomplete, and then 2022 was more ChatGPT, copy-paste, Cursor was 2023, and then Devin, I don't know who used Devin, that was interesting. Promised to be autonomous, but wasn't quite there. Then we get Claude Code 2025, that changed things. And Claude Code 4.6, Opus 4.6 was a real big change. Started 2026, now it's 4.7. That allowed to do things autonomously, really giving things to AI, basically given a task, and the task would be completed with testing, with QA, with different checks and open pull requests and comments and do any other things that AI are good at, so that all you have to do is kind of review. And this is where we are now. So in terms of what is possible. I'm going to talk about Claude Code. There are other agents. I'm not going to talk about them. And basically, everything I'm going to talk about maps to the other agents, but maybe requires a little bit different approach in terms of which files to touch and which structures to have. But the discipline itself should map cleanly. These are the slides, just make photo if you want. There are 4 helpers, the big helpers to working with Claude. One is Super Whisper. That's what I use on my Mac. That's basically a text-to-speech software that runs a small LLM on my machine that is very good at converting things. There may be other ones available, but that's the one that I use. Superpowers. That's an amazing skill set for Claude Code. If you're not using it, you should start using it like right now. That gives you quite a large set of skills, from product development to automation of QA and even content writing. Claude Mem, that's a big game changer for me. It was gives you persistent memory to your Claude agents. I'm not going to go too much into it, but it really works in terms of that the agent stops forgetting things. When you're compacting conversations, if you ever work with the agents, they like to compact conversations when the conversation does not fit in the context anymore, and it actually loses some of the context. So Claude Mem allows to bypass this or overcome this by remembering things. It actually runs some sort of a database behind things and adds about 50 to 100 tokens per session for any kind of index lookup. So it's not a big price to pay for a persistent memory and quality of the output the AI agent produces. That's another find, a recent find of mine, actually. It's called Agent Browser, produced by Vercel Labs. It has a skill and some other tooling that allows you to run visual QA in a headless browser. So you can think about it as a playwright on steroids. It can run multiple parallel agents in the background to test browser interactions and any kind of front-end stuff. So you can literally ask it to QA a feature that you've just built, and it will go and spawn these agents on the background without interruption. So you could continue working on other features or another project. Okay, so this is kind of why we're here, the workflow. 7 steps. Prompt, plan, implement and test, review locally, open and review PR, manual review, which is quite important, and then merge. So this workflow has a more advanced. I'm not sure if you can read it, but I'm going to talk through this. This workflow, I'm going to talk about every item in more detail, but there are multiple loops in the workflow that allow to automate this whole process. I'm actually going to go into it. So the step number 1 is prompt. When we develop in features, the easiest way, at least for me, is just to start speaking to my computer. So using that super whisper, start talking about it sorry, I should have actually mentioned that we are using a workflow feature of Claude that is something in Go's that allows you to kind of build up automations by putting together multiple skills. So when I start speaking doing this prompt, I'm actually saying things like create a feature about this and that, and just talk through things. And then the next step is actually the workflow picks up a planning skill. And the planning skill gets all that verbal input or textual input and tries to figure it out how to achieve it. And the skill itself, the planning skill itself, has instructions to ask me questions. So to confirm things that are not clear. And that actually happens in that kind of a questionnaire wizard interface. In this case, it's just one tab, but could be multiple tabs and it could be asking questions. Sometimes I would say to it, ask me more questions until you have no problems understanding what we need. The plan outputs, so that wizard itself takes it a bit further and it outputs the spec of what we're going to build. So there are kind of 2 artifacts. There is a plan, the plan how it's going to build it, and a spec of what will be built. And this is an example of a template that the planning skill has to actually populate with the spec of what we're going to build. This is the fun part, and this where whatever was created, those 2 artifacts, is then passed to another stage of the agent, a stage of the workflow where the agent picks it up and tries to implement it. But what I use is test-driven development superpower skill. So it's one of those skills that superpower library provides. And that works in a loop. So what it does, it creates, in my practice, I use Behat a lot. And I'm actually a maintainer of Behat, multiple Behat packages. So that would create a red test in Behat, proving that we don't have that feature working, or a bug is there, or and that's like the next step. It will try to produce a feature code per spec and confirm visually using the agent browser. So that's step number 3. And then the next step will be to run the test again and mark the whole thing as green. Now, if in any step here it finds that something is not right, it will try to do the cycle again. And that allows us to actually just leave the agent running completely autonomously and working the cycles until it resolves everything, until the tests are green. Then the next step in the so the code hasn't left actually local setup yet, right? So the next step is of the feature is to use one of the skills or any kind of other additional tools to perform a local review. And I'm using CodeRabbit. So CodeRabbit is something you could run on, actually they do provide a lot of open source support. So it's an agent that runs in GitHub, and whenever you submit a pull request, it will go and comment on that pull request. And what you can also do is install a CLI agent for CodeRabbit, and you can run it locally before it actually reaches your GitHub CI to run these things. So now what we have is actually another loop going on. So once we've built the feature, local agent will review it, provide the comments, and the changes will go through the whole implementation again. And the green and red test will run again, just to make sure that everything is working. And at that point, the whole feature workflow now ready. It's now ready to open pull request and review it. Now, it's not asking me as a user of all of this, or developer, to do anything yet. It's still autonomous. What it does, there's a skill to actually open pull request, and this is an example of how the PR could be formatted. So in this case, I have a skill that tells to GitHub to basically, hey, here is description in a human readable format to see before and after of the change. Like in this case, there was, repointing some branches, and you could visually see straight away what has happened in that pull request. It also can provide architectural diagrams. Like in this case, I don't have any, but if you have refactored something or added something, that's pretty cool as well. I can show you things. And this is the crux of that open pull request skill, that it not only provides the information on the description and the summary of what's been done, but it also waits for pull request checks. So the pull request checks would be Circle CI or GitHub Actions tests that would run in your CI, but also something like a CodeRabbit review, or CodeRabbit review replies, or code coverage services replies. So the agent sits there on your local machine and looks at the pull request checks and waits for them to pass. But what happens next? It tries to resolve and iterate again. So we already ran CodeRabbit locally. It already reviewed stuff, but there may be other things that it picked up for whatever reason. Maybe it's more powerful model runs when you push to GitHub, or it has happened that it would pick up again. So we do this iteration again. Now again, this runs absolutely autonomously. So because you have a skill that goes and tracks what happens with this feedback from CodeRabbit, it all runs autonomously. And this is the cool part. This is the end, where when everything happens at the very end, it notifies that pull request is ready for a human review. In this example, it doesn't actually say for human review, but sometimes it just said, hey, ready for human review, which is kind of funny. Yes, and like this example, it just gives you a pull request, a title, and some description of what was done. But now, if you think about it, like I'm usually running 4 or 5 agents. So, and I'm going to talk about context switching and mental load in a second. But from the point of leave it and let it work, this is really great because you can just use this whole feature workflow, have it running, and then come back, half an hour or in an hour, whatever, and just gives you this. That's all you see, right? And then you click, and this is where, when you click on the URL to go to pull request, this is the fun part starts, where you have to now do the manual review. And I can't stress enough how much this matters, right? So manual review doesn't go anywhere, or this doesn't change. The process doesn't change this, so we still have to go through manual review, and you have to start asking why, not just what was changed. So what I'm actually talking about here is that yes, we did our due diligence. We explained everything. We planned everything. There was a spec. There was the process, TDD, everything worked well, but there is a chance that there was implementation still didn't do something the way you wanted it to do, right? So you still can actually post a comment on GitHub saying, hey, explain to me why this has happened this way. I mean, if you think about it, if you were a tech lead in a company and you have your developers delivering a pull request like this, you would probably ask the same kind of a question from a developer. And then the agent actually listens for those comments, and it can actually reply to those. So this workflow can help with the manual review as well to clarify things. And last happy step, when you're happy with everything and there's no more iteration for these loops, nothing else to say, you can merge. Do you have any questions about this part? I have 3 more acts to talk about, but is that workflow, resonates with you? Yep. I have. Yep, that's a perfect question. The question here is about, there are frameworks like BMAT. BMAT is it's an open source repository which describes the skills and workflows and steps on end-to-end software delivery, starting from brainstorming session and going through to the full complete delivery. It's a very powerful thing. It works on producing a lot of artifacts at every stage. It's something that you would do during product development when you do it manually. And it's a process where you would involve specialists from all the areas and fields. I have looked at it. For Drupal, it's a little bit overkill because to me, it's my personal opinion only, overkill from the point that I'm working on the features, I'm not working on the whole product. At the same time, there is a product I'm working on where I actually have used, not BMAT, but other way of defining spec-driven development approach. And that worked amazingly well. So what I did do, I'm not going to reveal what this is, but there were about 150 features. So I had to talk to an agent to provide the specs for those features. I had to actually design a template for the spec, and that produced specs. And then I was able to point 6 agents to those specs and just say, build it, right? I'm not gonna lie, that wasn't perfect setup in the sense that it would deviate. So, and that's another discussion. Tooling, when you're working with spec-driven development, in order to put constraints on AI, it's good time, and it's good, not good time, it's a good case to build guardrails using some tooling. But what I'm saying, a good time, because it's cheap to build those, think about it as a linter. So we already have PHP CS, PHP stands for code quality. This is for architecture quality, right? So, and if you put specs, and then you put these rules, and the rule could be, I want all my SDC components to go into this folder with this structure, or I want all my CSS variables to have a specific name structure. So when it tries to generate all those things, it already knows what the structure is, but also it can validate. So if it tries to deviate, there's a hard fail, and your CI fails and stuff. So maybe it is something I can talk about separately on maybe another talk. But yeah, that's very interesting with spec-driven development. Mike, happy to talk to you offline about that. But great question, thank you. I'm actually going to jump into this talk. I think I have 10 minutes, yeah? Oh, 20 minutes, okay. Yep. No, I think it's, anyway, the tooling. Now I'm going to talk about just something that works for me. So that feature workflow is something that works well on multiple projects, but this is just some things If you are starting with AI for development, some things that has helped me, and I just want to share, maybe it will help you. Track your your user Claude directory as a Git repository. Because what happens is the more you develop, or the more you work on AI-based workflows or skills or anything, you will be creating more of artifacts, and you want to track them somehow. And you want to be able to go back and go through the history if you want to change things. What I do have is actually have a small hook that just auto-commits on every change in the repo. Very simple to set up. You can even ask the agent to set up for you, but then basically any change is tracked as a Git repository. Now, this is another thing I want to talk about. By default, AI agents are trying to store temporary files or any artifacts in some weird locations. What I do have, and this is for the actual project, this is a structure. I'm not sure if you can see it, but all my projects have a .artifacts directory, which is excluded, and there's even a temporary files there. So basically, whenever AI agent tries to generate any kind of assets or temporary files or anything, it actually goes not in your operating system temporary directory. It goes into your project artifacts, and you can just access them very conveniently because they all sit together. And also, you can see Claude settings, commands, and hooks is something that, I'm talking about this part, this is something that you could create per project. So not globally, per project, and you can share it with your team, right? So similar to any kind of Git hooks, if you ever use this. Permissions, I don't know, permissions are very interesting topic because some people would allow everything, some people would not allow anything, right? But it's quite important to set the permissions right if you actually want to do this autonomous workflow which are not interrupted by constantly asking for permission. Do you want to create a directory, or do you want to create a file, or things like that? So you could pre-create the settings file like this. You can even have a skill that you set up whenever you set up your project. It pre-creates the settings files like this for you with permissions that are allowed to run, for your project. And another one, interesting one. So Opus, I think it was Claude Code Opus 4.6 introduced this new way of optimizing running commands, where it would use compound commands with, end-to-end. So, and that what would do, any commands that you have approved in here would stop, these permissions would start failing because a compound command is not allowed. So I don't know why they did it, but basically that broke permission system. Well, I mean, for me and a couple of people that I spoke. So there is a way you can set up a hook literally that hook, that just prevents agent from optimizing their own commands and issuing commands one by one, basically. It affects token usage a little bit, but it resolved that problem of things being asked. Like you already approved of the permissions, but because it's compounding commands, keep asking you the same question over and over again. So this is something I already touched on when Mike asked the question. When you want to codify some rules, you could actually build up this small script that just run as a part of your CI or your local setup that just checks things that you like, project agreements or project architecture rules. You can see in here, checking that where exactly the behat features live in, or what's the name for the twig template. So you can just enforce this. You can ask the agent to build these rules for you, so you don't even have to kind of touch them. My go-to rule is if there is a script, there should be a test for the script. So when I build the script, there is also a test for them. I don't know, maybe it's just personal, but I'd like everything to be tested, to be reliable. Yes, so this is what I was talking about. I don't write the script skills much. I ask the agent to. So basically, there are two ways of doing it. Again, it's kind of personal. There is a superpowers writing skills script, skill, superpowers, writing skills, skill, right? It's a meta, right? It allows you to, you would work on something and be like, oh, hey, this feels like it's reusable. How about I convert it to a skill? Well, guess what, you can. You just say, hey, use superpowers skill to capture this as a skill. And what the skill does, it just takes the history of what you talked about and converts it to a reusable skill, which is, I think is pretty cool, right? And another way of using it is, when you know what you want to build, like a reusable skill, you just say, oh, let's start to build a skill. And it's going to ask you questions with questionnaire wizard, like what would you like to do, what the skill should do, things like that. So that superpowers writing skill is quite powerful. In the description of this talk, I've actually promised to talk about Git work trees and autonomous cloud agents. Sorry, I had to break this promise. I actually couldn't use work trees. So work trees are great when you don't have a database or an environment you need to run. For Drupal projects, what worked for me is I just clone. I just have basically every client project has four clone repositories, and that's where the agents run. Because each of those has its own Docker setup and environment, everything's running, right? I don't know how to solve it. If anyone knows or have solved it, please share. That will be interesting. I know that guys at DDev community try to solve it somehow. I'm not sure how that works specifically. On the cloud agents, something that I'm going to look into, but what I can tell you is running cloud agents for Drupal development. Sorry, what that means is you basically, instead of running my machine, I would give the task to a cloud agent, right? So doing this felt to me like premature optimization at this point, because even with the stuff that I showed you today, I still have to guide the agents all the time. I have to control it. Not all the time. I mean, any time that it breaks, you have to go and maybe review a skill or maybe update a spec or something like that, which is something that improves with time. But I personally wouldn't put that into cloud agents at this point. Something I want to talk about, very important, the mental load. I actually even blogged about it a little bit. Not a blogger, but I had a thought. The mental load, the context switching, that's the biggest tax right now. Personal for me and couple of people I spoke, is because when you're running multiple agents, you have to context switch a lot, and you have to keep things in your head a lot. And when you context switch, you would context switch to make a decision usually, right? And you need to understand what you asked the agent to do, what it actually has done, and reconcile it in your head, make a decision if the agent asks you what to do next, and then switch to the next task. And that just, it's very hard, at least in my brain. I'm not sure, maybe people think differently, but it's something you can achieve with discipline. Just, get used to it and or coffee, right? So, I don't know, or Red Bull, whatever your preference is. So yeah, one of the ideas is you just cap the number of agents. Just 2, 3, maybe 4. It's very addictive though, because they do, right? They do work, and you want them to work more. Yes, so another one is the fear of drift. Something I touched on today. What I mean by this is, with everything you've done correctly, is the rules, the specs, everything, right? You feel the power of the scale here, and you started your agents. But there is this feel that when you come back in an hour or two, whatever, it will still drift. And then, I'm running small business, and I'm hourly rates and stuff, and I'm like, well, how much is it going to cost me on overruns of this? So that fear of drift is real. The way to mitigate it, though, is you could put better or improved skills that would remediate it. I can say that working with human developers would be probably the same, in a sense that you're asking someone to build something and you're expecting them to give you something that you expect, right? But it may be something else. So maybe it's similar way of fearing that drift, but that's I mean, again, that's something I experience, and I'm trying to mitigate it by that. Yeah, but those improving the skills, or my skills as well, not only agent skills. And the last one is the fear of running out. That's another one. When you have agents working at scale, you just smashing through tokens like crazy, right? Not a sales pitch or anything, but Claude Code, you can buy. I think the one that is maximum one is Claude Max, which is $300. That gives you about $5,000 in API tokens, if you know how the token economy works. But I mean, that's quite a lot actually. So if you deliver, I don't know, I was not going to go into Fibonacci points, but you know, 3-5 points per day, you should be normally, manually, without AI. If you do that, that should be enough for you for a week. And they have this weekly limits and daily limits, and I think every 4-hour limits. So you have to pace your work accordingly. I have exceeded that multiple times, so I had to be creative about how to use it differently, maybe stop a little bit, go for a walk or something, which is another good thing, that when you run out of tokens, you can look around and, you know, stop the IT part of your life and do something else. Okay, oh, sorry, just one more thing that I didn't put a slide in. I want to stop on this, actually, and just say there is also an important mental load with the fact that we will all be replaced by AI at some point, right? So we all feel it. That's just, I just want to say one thing here. Sorry, two things. One thing is it probably will happen, but not in a way that we think it will be. I'm just going to stop there. But I think we will be not replaced, but augmented or some other way of bringing AI into our lives. But I don't think we're going to be replaced in full. I'm not going to talk about that. But the second part is, if you feel like you are, if you really feel, I think it's very important to reach out to community and just talk to people. Like I've actually said in a blog post, like just send a DM to a friend or someone in the community. I'm talking about the feelings now. Like if you feel bad or feel like, you know, anxiety about this stuff being replaced by AI and stuff, please reach out to people. Like just talk to someone, because it's not exactly like that. It's not necessarily what you think is what it is. Yeah, that's important to think about that, in my opinion. Okay, what I'm going to leave you here is, to me, AI is a force multiplier. Doesn't remove the engineering, removes the friction around engineering. So you're an engineer, I'm the engineer, we're still engineers. We still have to make those decisions. Maybe in this case, we just do it faster and more often. Yes, so writing the code is no longer the hard part. I guess maybe this is the most important slide here. Knowing what to write is, and AI would help to crystallize ideas before you actually implement them. And this is, I think, the power of AI. So you could not only prototype faster, but you could think about and put the ideation phase to be faster as well, because you can ideate with AI. But you still need to know what you're actually doing. So, you know, everyone knows vibe coding, and I've heard of the term vibe coding. I don't believe in vibe coding in the way that, you know, anyone can write anything. You still need to know what you're actually doing, right? So, and we are here, all of us, we know what we're doing, like we are professionals in what we do, right? So we're professional engineers and other specialists. So AI will need us to know what we're doing, and, you know, need to know. We need to know that we need to review it. We are the reviewers now. We are reviewers at the highest scale of things we've ever been. I have two things. So one is, on some of the client projects, AI was not allowed. So what I did do is I've just extracted it into a Drupal module. This is a self-promotion. Drupal extension scaffold is one of the repositories I maintain. This is a scaffold that you can use to host your module on GitHub. It has CI integration, multiple PHP versions running, testing integration, all the tooling that you need, right? That's one thing. That's for your contribs if you ever want it. I have couple of my contribs running there instead of running Drupal CI for different reasons. This allows me to be more flexible with tooling than what Drupal CI has. It's maybe preference of taste for some people. And another one, so this is a big one for me personally, Vortex is a Drupal project template. This is something I've been maintaining for last 7 years, and it's been progressing, it's working for my clients. So the idea behind Vortex is this is all the tooling and everything that you need, CI, integrations with hosting, whatever you need to run on your client projects. It works really well with AI because it has all the tooling and all those constraints and build. So you start with Vortex, you add your modules, whatever you need, and then you can ask AI to start building the features. And because the tests systems like PHP unit, Behat, and everything already set up for you there, and CI is set up, it will just work straight away. So you could actually go from zero to working side much faster. Personally for me, AI feels liberating in the sense that I can finally do maybe questionably a lot of work, questionable in terms of maybe no one needs it, but at least I can express myself in all those ideas that I wanted always to build. I can just do it. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
How do you nurture your context window? So, are you getting past that 20% and it starts being a little bit silly?
Yep.
How do you look after it?
So things have changed recently. You have a 1 million context now, which is quite a lot. I'm not sure if that's your question on how to manage the context, but actually for me, the answer is simple. I don't manage it. I let the Claude Mem plugin just kick in whenever I exceed the context. Because it remembers everything, it will just reprovision the context the next time then when context compacts. Did I answer your question?